The secret to speaking English fluently, listening first. Around the world, millions of learners spend years studying English. Yet when it's time to speak, they freeze. Maybe you've memorized grammar rules, practiced vocabulary lists, or even repeated phrases. But fluency still feels out of reach. Why does this happen? The truth is, you skipped the most natural step. In this video, you'll discover why listening is the real key to fluency, how your brain learns languages through sound, and how this secret can finally unlock your confidence. Every English learner has faced this. You spend hours studying grammar books, memorizing vocabulary lists, and maybe even passing tests with high scores. But when it's time to speak with a native speaker, suddenly the words vanish. Your mind goes blank. You feel nervous, embarrassed, and frustrated. Why does this happen? The problem isn't you. The problem is the system most people use to learn English. Traditional learning focuses too much on speaking too soon. It's like trying to run before you can walk. Imagine a child who has never heard language sounds, yet someone asks them to speak sentences correctly. Impossible, right? But that's exactly what happens to many English learners around the world. Let's break this down further. There are 3 main reasons why fluency feels so difficult. First, grammar obsession. From school, many of us were taught that the key to speaking English is perfect grammar. We drill verb tenses, memorize irregular verbs, and spend hours correcting sentences. But here's the truth. Native speakers don't even think about grammar rules when they talk. They don't pause to calculate whether to use the present perfect or past simple. They just speak naturally. When you rely too much on grammar, you slow yourself down. Your brain is trying to solve a math problem while having a conversation, and of course it feels stressful. Think about it. When was the last time you met someone who spoke slowly because they were translating rules in their head? Maybe that's been you. And if so, it's not your fault. You've been trained to believe grammar equals fluency. But fluency is flow, not calculation. Second, fear of mistakes. Many learners hesitate to speak because they worry about being wrong. Maybe you've felt this. Your heart races. You think, what if I sound stupid? What if they don't understand me? That fear blocks you from practicing. But here's something important. Children make hundreds of mistakes when learning their first language. They say things like, I go to the park, or I eat at ice cream. Nobody laughs at them. Everyone understands, corrects gently, and the child keeps speaking. Mistakes are natural, even necessary. Yet adults put so much pressure on themselves that fluency becomes a stressful performance instead of a natural skill. I've heard learners from Japan, India, and Mexico all tell me the same story. They know English in their heads, but fear shuts their mouths. They don't want to look foolish. But here's the truth. Making mistakes is not a weakness, it's proof you are learning. Third, speaking before listening. This is the biggest trap. Most learners are pushed to start speaking immediately. Teachers ask, introduce yourself in English, on the very first day. While it feels productive, it's actually unnatural. Think about babies. They listen for months, sometimes years before they start speaking. By the time they say their first words, their brains are already full of sounds, rhythms, and patterns. But many English learners skip this input stage completely. They try to speak without having listened enough, and that's like trying to play a song on guitar without ever hearing the melody. Let me paint a picture. Imagine you're learning Spanish, and on your first day, the teacher says, okay, introduce yourself now. You know nothing. You panic. You feel awkward. But if instead, you had listened to hours of Spanish conversations, music, and stories, the words would start to sound familiar. Later, when you try to speak, they would naturally come out of your mouth. That's the power of listening first. So what happens when learners follow this traditional path? Frustration. You might recognize these feelings. You understand English in class, but real conversations sound too fast. You can write sentences, but when you talk, they come out broken. You know many words, but in the moment, they disappear. You feel comfortable reading subtitles, but without them, movies seem impossible. This cycle leads many people to believe they're just bad at languages. But that's not true at all. You're not bad at English. You've just been using the wrong method. Let me share some real stories. A friend of mine from Brazil studied English for 10 years. He could read newspapers and even write essays, but when he visited the US, he struggled to order coffee. He was shocked. He thought he had mastered English, but he realized his studies had prepared him for exams, not real-life conversations. On the other hand, I knew a Korean student who did something very different. Instead of focusing on grammar books, she spent months just listening, TV shows, podcasts, and conversations. At first, she didn't speak much, but when she finally tried, her sentences flowed naturally. People even asked if she had lived in America. That's the power of listening first. And it's not just these two stories. In Vietnam, I met a young man who never had access to formal English classes. Instead, he listened to American music every single day. At first, he only understood a few words, but he kept listening. Over time, he caught phrases, expressions, and even pronunciation patterns. When he finally joined a conversation, people were amazed. He sounded confident, not because he had memorized grammar rules, but because he had absorbed the rhythm of the language. Here's the main point. Fluency is not about knowing more words, memorizing more rules, or forcing yourself to talk. Fluency is about training your ears first. Listening builds a natural base that makes speaking easier. So if you've been feeling stuck, it's not because you lack talent. It's because you skipped the step your brain needed most, listening. Now that we understand the problem, let's talk about why listening is the solution. Why does it work so well? Why is it the foundation of fluency? To answer this, we need to look at how the brain learns languages. Think about how you learned your first language. You didn't start with grammar books. You didn't memorize vocabulary lists. You didn't take tests. For months, sometimes even years, you just listened. You listened to your parents, your family, people around you. You absorbed the sounds, the rhythm, the melody of your language. Only after thousands of hours of listening did you finally begin to speak. This process is called input-first learning, and science shows that it's not just a coincidence, it's the natural way the brain acquires languages. Researchers in linguistics have found something fascinating. The brain is like a giant pattern recognition machine. It listens to sounds again and again until it begins to recognize patterns. Without even realizing it, you start to understand grammar, word order, and pronunciation, not because someone explained it to you, but because your brain figured it out from listening. Let me give you an example. If you listen to English long enough, you don't need to think about whether to say I am going or I going. Your brain automatically knows that I going sounds wrong, even if you never memorized a grammar rule about it. This is the same way you know in your native language when a sentence doesn't sound right. You don't calculate, it just feels wrong. That's the power of listening. Another important piece of science is something called comprehensible input, a term made famous by linguist Stephen Krashen. Comprehensible input means listening to language that is just a little above your current level. Not too easy, not too hard. When you do this, your brain is challenged, but not overwhelmed. That's when learning happens. It's the sweet spot where fluency starts to grow naturally. Think of it like going to the gym. If the weights are too light, you don't get stronger. If they're too heavy, you give up. But if they're just challenging enough, your muscles grow. Listening works the same way for your brain. Now, here's something even more exciting. Neuroscientists have discovered that listening activates multiple parts of the brain at once: auditory areas for sound, memory centers for storing patterns, and even motor regions that prepare your mouth to copy what you hear. In other words, by listening, you are training your brain to speak, even before you open your mouth. This explains why children can suddenly start speaking after months of silence. Their brains have been preparing in the background, and this same process works for adults too. Let's compare two learners. One learner spends most of their time memorizing grammar rules and forcing themselves to speak. The other learner spends hours listening to English every day, songs, podcasts, conversations. Who do you think will sound more natural after a year? The science is clear. The listening-first learner will have better rhythm, pronunciation, and flow, even if they haven't studied as many rules. But maybe you're thinking, that's fine for kids. But I'm an adult. Does listening still work for me? The answer is yes. In fact, research shows that adults can learn languages faster than children if they use the right method. The problem is, most adults don't use the natural method. They rely on textbooks, not input. But when adults switch to listening first, the results are powerful. Let me tell you about a student from Turkey. She had studied English for years in school, but still couldn't hold a conversation. She was shy and afraid of making mistakes. Then she discovered English podcasts. She started listening every day during her commute, 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes at night. At first, she only understood maybe 40%, but she kept going. After 6 months, she noticed something surprising. English conversations no longer sounded like noise. She could catch phrases, jokes, even fast speech. Soon her speaking improved too, even though she hadn't been practicing much. Why? Because her brain had been trained by listening. Here's another scientific reason why listening matters: mirror neurons. These are special cells in your brain that fire both when you do something and when you watch or listen to someone else doing it. That means when you listen to English, your brain is actually practicing speaking at the same time. You're silently training your mouth, your tongue, your accent. That's why listening to natural speech is the best preparation for speaking. Now, let's go even deeper. Have you ever noticed how some people have a strong accent in English, while others sound almost native? A lot of that comes from listening. If you mostly read English, your brain focuses on letters. But letters don't represent all the sounds perfectly. English spelling is tricky. For example, the word through looks nothing like it sounds. But if you listen to English every day, your brain starts to map the true sounds, not the confusing spelling. That's how you pick up accent, intonation, and rhythm. Another example. Many learners from China or India tell me they can write professional emails in English, but they struggle to understand fast conversations. Why? Because they've spent years reading and writing, but not enough listening. Fluency comes from sound, not from text. Science also shows that listening builds something called implicit memory, knowledge you can use without thinking. When you drive a car, you don't think about every movement. You just do it. Listening builds the same kind of automatic response for language. That's why fluent speakers don't pause to calculate grammar. They just know what sounds right. And here's something encouraging. Every time you listen, even if you don't understand everything, your brain is learning. Many learners think, if I don't understand 100%, I'm wasting time. That's not true. Even when you catch only 30% or 40%, your brain is storing sounds, rhythms, and intonation. Later, when you hear them again, they suddenly make sense. That's how children learn, and it works for adults too. So, what does this mean for you? It means you don't have to force speaking practice from day one. You don't have to feel guilty if you're not talking all the time. Instead, you can relax and focus on input. Trust that your brain is working in the background. When the time is right, speaking will come naturally. Here's the bottom line. Listening is not passive. It's active brain training. Every time you listen, your brain is building connections, recognizing patterns, and preparing you to speak more fluently. So, if you've ever thought, I understand English, but I can't speak it, the problem is not a lack of speaking practice. The problem is a lack of listening. Speaking will come, but only after you give your brain enough input. Now that we've explored the science behind listening, let's make it real. Let's look at stories of people, just like you, who struggled with English but finally broke through using listening as their secret weapon. First, let me tell you about Maria from Mexico. Maria had studied English since middle school. She knew hundreds of vocabulary words, and she could pass grammar tests with no problem. But when she moved to the United States for work, she felt lost. She couldn't follow meetings. She froze in conversations. She told me, I thought I knew English, but I couldn't survive one real conversation without panicking. Then, Maria tried something new. She stopped worrying about speaking and started listening. Every day on her way to work, she played English podcasts. At first, she only caught a few words, but slowly her ears adjusted. Within 6 months, she noticed a change. She could finally follow group discussions, laugh at jokes, and respond naturally. Listening had rewired her brain. Today, she speaks fluently at work, and she says, "It feels like a heavy weight has been lifted." Next, meet Akira from Japan. Akira always dreamed of traveling abroad, but English terrified him. In school, he had been taught strict grammar rules and every mistake was punished. He became so scared of speaking that he avoided conversations altogether. But when Akira discovered YouTube in English, everything changed. He spent hours every night watching cooking shows, travel vlogs, and interviews. At first, he didn't understand much, but he kept going. After a year, Akira finally traveled to Australia. To his surprise, he could chat with locals, order food, and even make friends. He told me, "I thought I was bad at English, but I just needed to listen more." His confidence exploded, not because he forced himself to speak, but because his brain was already prepared through listening. Now, let's go to Nigeria, where English is widely used, but many learners still struggle with fluency. A student named Chinedu reached out to me saying, "I understand English in class, but real conversations move too fast." He felt frustrated because his teachers focused only on writing essays. So Chinedu created his own listening routine. Every day he listened to sports commentary and music in English. At first it was overwhelming, but after a few months he noticed something powerful. He could finally predict what people were about to say. He wasn't translating in his head anymore. He was thinking directly in English. Today, Chinedu confidently debates with his friends in English, and he says listening gave him the fluency he had always dreamed of. Here's another inspiring story from Turkey. A young woman named Elif always loved American movies, but she used to watch them with subtitles in her native language. One day, she decided to challenge herself. She switched to English subtitles. At first, she was frustrated. She felt like she wasn't learning anything. But she stayed consistent. After a few months, she realized something amazing. She no longer needed the subtitles at all. She could finally watch movies in English and understand the story, the humor, even the sarcasm. That's when her speaking also improved. She said, "Listening to natural English every day gave me the confidence to use it myself." Let's move to Brazil now. A man named Paulo worked in customer service and had to answer calls from English-speaking clients. At first, he was terrified. He couldn't understand the fast accents on the phone. He thought about quitting his job. But instead, he committed to a simple habit: 20 minutes of listening every morning. He chose English audiobooks and repeated the same chapters again and again until they became familiar. Slowly, the phone calls became easier. One day, a client told him, "Wow, your English is really good." That moment gave him the confidence boost he needed. Paolo didn't just keep his job, he earned a promotion. Finally, let me share the story of Sophia from Germany. Sophia loved learning languages, but English was always her weakest. She had a thick accent and she felt embarrassed speaking in class. Then she tried shadowing, a technique where you listen to English audio and repeat it immediately, almost like an echo. She started with just 5 minutes a day. Slowly, her accent softened. Her rhythm improved. After 6 months, her classmates were shocked at how natural she sounded. Sophia says, "I didn't change my grammar. I changed my ears. Do you see the pattern here?" These people came from different countries, different backgrounds, different struggles, but they all had the same breakthrough. When they made listening their main focus, fluency started to grow naturally. Now, I want you to think about yourself. Which story feels closest to your situation? Maybe you're like Maria, nervous at work. Maybe you're like Akira, afraid to travel. Maybe you're like Chinedu, frustrated with fast conversations. Whoever you are, remember this. Listening can transform your English too. And here's the best part. It doesn't matter where you live, how old you are, or how many years you've studied. The listening first method works globally because it's based on how the human brain naturally learns language. So now that you've seen these success stories, let's move to the practical side. How can you create the same results? What daily listening habits will help you build fluency step by step? That's exactly what we'll cover in the next section. You've now seen why listening is so powerful and how it has transformed the lives of learners around the world. But the big question is, how can you use this in your daily life? What are the practical steps you can take starting today? Let's break it down into simple, clear strategies. Start small, but be consistent. The first mistake many learners make is trying to do too much at once. They listen for hours one day, then quit for a week. That doesn't work. Language learning is not a sprint, it's a marathon. Just like going to the gym, consistency matters more than intensity. So here's your first rule. Start with just 10 to 20 minutes a day. That's it. You don't need to spend hours. Even short daily listening sessions train your brain. Over time, you can increase to 30 minutes or an hour. But the key is, never skip a day. Choose content you enjoy. Here's something very important. Don't torture yourself with boring lessons. If you don't enjoy the content, you won't stay consistent. Instead, choose topics you love. Do you like sports? Listen to sports commentary. Do you enjoy cooking? Watch recipe videos in English. Are you into movies, comedy, or technology? There's endless English content online. When you enjoy what you're listening to, your brain stays engaged. You stop thinking of it as study and start enjoying it as entertainment. That's the secret to long-term success. Use comprehensible input. Remember the concept we talked about earlier, comprehensible input? This is the sweet spot of learning. The material should be just a little above your level. Not too easy, not too difficult. If you understand 60–80% of what you're hearing, you're in the perfect zone. If you understand less than 50%, it might feel overwhelming. In that case, slow it down or choose simpler content. If you understand 100%, it's too easy. You're not challenging your brain enough. Always aim for the middle ground. Listen in different ways. Not all listening is the same. There are different techniques you can use. Passive listening. Play English in the background while you cook, clean, or commute. Even if you're not fully focused, your brain is still absorbing sounds. Active listening. Sit down and give your full attention. Take notes, repeat sentences, or pause to check meanings. Repetition listening. Listen to the same podcast or video multiple times. The first time, you may only catch a little. The second or third time, suddenly more words make sense. Shadowing. This is a powerful technique where you repeat what you hear immediately, almost like an echo. It improves your rhythm, pronunciation, and confidence. Mix these methods. Some days do passive listening. Other days practice shadowing. This variety keeps learning fresh and effective. Set listening goals. Without goals, it's easy to lose focus. Set small, achievable targets. For example, this week I will listen to 10 minutes of English every day. This month, I will finish one English audiobook. By the end of the year, I will watch 20 English movies without subtitles. Goals give you direction, and every time you reach one, you feel motivated to keep going. Make subtitles your friend. Movies and shows are fantastic listening practice, but don't rely too much on subtitles. At first, use English subtitles to connect sound with meaning. But later, challenge yourself. Turn them off. Or try this method. Watch once with subtitles, then again without. You'll be amazed at how much more you understand the second time. Turn dead time into learning time. Most people say, "I don't have time to practice English." But look closely. You have more time than you think. Do you commute to work? That's listening time. Do you exercise? Put on an English podcast. Do you cook or clean? Play English in the background. These little moments add up. Even 10 extra minutes a day equals 60 hours a year. Imagine the progress you can make. Track your progress. Sometimes learners feel discouraged because they don't notice their progress. But here's the truth. Improvement happens slowly, like watching a tree grow. You may not see it every day, but it's happening. That's why tracking helps. Keep a simple journal. Write down what you listened to, how long, and what new words you noticed. After a few months, you'll look back and realize how far you've come. Don't fear what you don't understand. This is a big one. Many learners stop listening when they don't understand everything. They feel frustrated and think, "This is too hard for me." But remember this, you don't need to understand every single word. Your brain is learning even when you don't notice it. Focus on the big picture, the overall meaning. Slowly, the details will become clearer. Stay patient and trust the process. Finally, the most important habit, patience. Fluency takes time. Just like muscles don't grow in one workout, language skills don't appear overnight. But if you stay consistent, you will notice results. One day, you'll realize you just understood a joke in English, or you answered a question without translating in your head. That's the reward for your patience. Now let's put all of this together into a daily routine. Here's an example you can follow. Morning, 10 minutes. Listen to a short podcast while getting ready. Commute, 20 minutes. Play English audio, news, YouTube, or an audiobook. Evening, 15 minutes. Watch a TV show in English with subtitles. Try shadowing a few lines. Weekend. Rewatch one favorite episode or video without subtitles. If you follow this routine, that's already more than 5 hours of listening every week. Multiply that by a year and you've given your brain over 250 hours of English input. That's how fluency grows. So the question is, are you ready to make listening a part of your life? Because this habit alone can completely change the way you speak. Step-by-step fluency method. Now that you know how to build daily listening habits, let's take it one step further. How do you go from listening to actually speaking fluently? What's the exact process? Here's a step-by-step fluency method that you can follow. Think of it like a roadmap. If you stay on the path, fluency becomes not just possible, but inevitable. Step 1. Build your listening foundation. The first step is to give your brain enough input. For at least the first few months, focus mostly on listening. Choose materials you enjoy. Podcasts, YouTube videos, TV shows, audiobooks. Don't worry about speaking yet. Just listen every day. This is the stage where your brain is absorbing sounds, rhythm, and natural patterns. Imagine planting seeds in a garden. At first, you don't see results, but under the soil, the roots are growing. The same thing happens here. Your listening is creating a strong base that will later support your speaking. Step 2. Understand the big picture. Not every word. Many learners get stuck here because they try to understand everything. That's not necessary. At this stage, focus on the main ideas. What is the speaker talking about? What's the emotion? What's the context? Don't panic if you miss words. Over time, your brain will fill the gaps naturally. Think about how babies learn. They don't understand every word their parents say, but they still learn the meaning through context. You can do the same. Step 3. Listen repeatedly. Repetition is your secret weapon. Choose one video, podcast, or audio clip and listen to it multiple times. The first time, you may catch only a few words. The second time, you catch more. By the third or fourth time, you'll understand much more, and the sounds will feel familiar. This step is like training your ears to hear faster. Repetition turns confusing noise into clear meaning. Step 4. Shadowing practice. Now comes one of the most powerful techniques: shadowing. Shadowing means repeating what you hear immediately, almost like an echo. Play a short clip of English and try to copy the speaker's rhythm, tone, and pronunciation. Don't worry about being perfect. Just try to follow along. At first, it feels difficult. But after weeks of practice, your mouth will get used to forming English sounds. You'll start to sound more natural, more fluent, and more confident. Many learners say shadowing is the step that completely changed their speaking ability. Step 5. Mix listening with speaking. Once you've built a strong listening foundation and practice shadowing, start adding short speaking practice. For example, pause a podcast and summarize what you just heard in your own words. After watching a YouTube video, explain the main idea out loud. Repeat a sentence you liked, but change a few words to make it your own. This step bridges the gap between listening and speaking. You're still using input, but now you're actively producing English too. Step 6. Practice with real conversations. Now it's time to test yourself in real life. Find a language partner online, join an English club, or use apps that connect learners worldwide. Start with short conversations, even just 5 minutes. Don't aim for perfection, aim for communication. Remember, your listening has already prepared your brain. When you speak, the words will come more naturally than before. Step 7. Reflect and improve. After each conversation or listening session, take a moment to reflect. Ask yourself, what did I understand easily? Where did I struggle? Which words or phrases should I learn? Write these down in a notebook. Reflection helps you see progress and keeps you focused on improvement. Step 8. Build fluency through repetition and routine. Fluency is not a one-time event, it's a habit. Keep repeating this cycle. Listen daily. Shadow regularly. Speak in short conversations. Reflect and improve. Every time you go through the cycle, you'll notice that speaking feels easier and more natural. A real-life example of the method. Let me share a story of a student named Lena from Korea. She followed this exact method. For 3 months, she only listened. Podcasts, audiobooks, and dramas. Then she started shadowing short clips every day. After that, she began summarizing what she heard in her own words. Finally, she joined an online conversation group once a week. At first, she struggled. She felt nervous and made mistakes. But after 6 months, her confidence grew. She told me, "For the first time, I can actually enjoy conversations in English." Today, she speaks fluently, not because she forced herself to talk early, but because she followed the step-by-step method. The key mindset. The most important part of this method is patience. Fluency doesn't come in 1 week or even 1 month. But if you trust the process and stay consistent, you will see results. Remember, your brain is learning in the background, even when it feels slow. So, here's the big picture again. Listen daily. Focus on meaning, not perfection. Repeat content. Shadow to train your mouth. Speak in small steps. Have real conversations. Reflect and improve. Keep the cycle going. Follow this roadmap, and fluency is not just possible, it's guaranteed. We've now built a powerful system for fluency. Listening first, then shadowing, then speaking. But there's something important we need to talk about: the common mistakes learners make. If you know these traps, you can avoid them and reach fluency faster. Mistake 1. Trying to speak too early. This is the most common mistake. Many learners push themselves to speak before their brain is ready. They feel frustrated, embarrassed, and think they're bad at English. But the truth is, speaking too soon is like trying to run before you can walk. You need input first, so don't feel guilty if you're not speaking much at the beginning. Focus on listening. The words will come later. Mistake 2. Obsessing over grammar. Grammar is useful, but it's not the key to fluency. If you spend all your time memorizing rules, you'll freeze when you try to speak. Native speakers don't think about grammar in conversations. They rely on patterns they've heard thousands of times. You should do the same. Learn grammar naturally through listening, not through endless drills. Mistake 3. Listening without focus. Some learners think, if I play English in the background all day, I'll get fluent. That's not true. Background listening is helpful, but you also need active listening. You must pay attention, repeat phrases, and engage with the content. Passive listening alone won't give you fluency. You need a balance of passive and active practice. Mistake 4. Choosing the wrong content. If your listening material is too hard, you'll feel lost. If it's too easy, you won't grow. Many learners give up because they don't choose the right level. Always aim for comprehensible input, content that's just above your current level. And make sure you enjoy it. Boring content kills motivation. Fun content keeps you going. Mistake 5. Expecting quick results. Fluency takes time. If you expect to speak perfectly after 1 month, you'll get frustrated and quit. Remember, learning a language is like growing a tree. You don't see the roots, but they're growing underground. Listening builds those roots. Be patient, and your progress will surprise you. Mistake 6. Fear of mistakes. Many learners avoid speaking because they're afraid of making errors. But mistakes are part of learning. Children make mistakes all the time, but they still become fluent. Don't let fear stop you. Every mistake is proof that you're learning. Mistake 7. Stopping too soon. This is a silent killer of fluency. Some learners get excited, listen for a few weeks, and then quit when results aren't immediate. But fluency is about consistency, not bursts of effort. If you stop, your progress stops. If you keep going, your fluency keeps growing. It's that simple. So how do you avoid these mistakes? Give yourself permission to listen more before speaking. Use grammar as a tool, not a prison. Balance passive and active listening. Choose content that's fun and just challenging enough. Be patient. Trust the process. Embrace mistakes as your teachers. Stay consistent even when it feels slow. If you follow this advice, you'll avoid the traps that hold so many learners back. To finish strong, we need to talk about something bigger than methods or techniques. We need to talk about mindset, because your mindset will decide whether you succeed or give up. Here's the truth. Fluency is a journey, not a destination. It doesn't happen in 1 month or even 6 months. But if you stay consistent for years, English becomes a natural part of your life. That's the mindset you need to build. Focus on progress, not perfection. Many learners feel frustrated because they compare themselves to native speakers. But that's not fair. Your goal is not to be perfect, it's to communicate. If today you understand a little more than yesterday, that's progress. Celebrate it. Small improvements add up over time. Think in years, not weeks. Ask yourself, where do I want my English to be 1 year from now? 2 years? 5 years? If you listen every day, even just 20 minutes, the long-term results will amaze you. Imagine how confident you'll feel in the future if you stay consistent today. Make English part of your life. Fluency doesn't come from studying once in a while. It comes from living with English. That means listening to English music, watching English shows, following English podcasts, maybe even journaling in English. Don't treat it like a subject in school. Treat it like a lifestyle. Be kind to yourself. There will be days when English feels hard. You'll make mistakes, forget words, or feel stuck. That's normal. Every learner goes through ups and downs. The key is not to quit. Instead, remind yourself, I'm learning. I'm improving. I'm moving forward. Self-kindness keeps you motivated when things feel slow. Remember why you started. When motivation gets low, think about your reason. Do you want English for travel, for work? To connect with people around the world? To enjoy movies and books in English? Whatever your reason is, keep it close to your heart. That reason will push you forward when discipline feels hard. So here's the long-term mindset in one sentence. Don't chase fast results. Build daily habits. If you do, fluency is not a question of if, but only a question of when. And in our final section, I'll wrap everything up and give you one last piece of advice that can change the way you learn forever. So, let's bring it all together. We started with a simple but powerful idea. The secret to speaking English fluently is listening first. We looked at why traditional methods fail, how your brain learns languages naturally, and the science of listening. We explored practical techniques like shadowing, daily habits, and the step-by-step fluency method. We even uncovered the common mistakes to avoid and the long-term mindset you need to succeed. Here's the key takeaway. Fluency is not about talent. It's not about perfection. It's about listening, building habits, and staying consistent. If you do that, fluency will come. Naturally, easily, and with confidence. So here's my challenge to you. Starting today, commit to 20 minutes of English listening every single day. Podcasts, YouTube, audiobooks, whatever you enjoy. Do it daily and watch your English transform. And if this video helped you, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit the like button, and share this video with friends who are also learning English. Together, we can build a global community of confident, fluent speakers. Your fluency journey starts now, one listen at a time.